session. We have verses 4, 5, and 6 lined up. I'll start with verse number 4. दम्भो दर्पोऽभिमानश्च क्रोधा पारुष्यमेव च अज्ञानं चाभिजातस्य पार्थासम्पदमासुरीम्. So the verse translates to ostentation, arrogance, self-conceit, and anger, also harshness and ignorance belong, O Partha, to one born of demonic nature. So let's look at the words. Dambho. Damb is ostentation. Darp is arrogance. Abhiman is self-conceit. Excessive pride. Cha is and. Krodh is anger. Parushyam is harshness. Ev also cha and. Agyanam. So gyan is knowledge. Agyan becomes ignorance. Cha again is and. Abhijatasya. So abhijat is one that is born. Abhijatasya becomes of one that is born. Partha is a name for Arjun, which means son of Prithu. Sampadam is nature, characteristic. Asurim is which is demonic. So the verse translates to ostentation, arrogance, self-conceit, and anger. Also harshness and arrogance belong, O Partha, to one born of demonic nature. So let's chant it together. दम्भोदर्पोऽभिमानश्च क्रोधपारुष्यमेव च अज्ञानं चाभिजातस्य पार्थसम्पदमासुरीम्. So now the previous three verses, as we recap just now, covered the 26 qualities of the divine people. In this verse, Lord Krishna presents before us the qualities of the opposite category of people, the demonic people. And six qualities are presented before us. So the first one is dambh or ostentation, which is almost synonymous with hypocrisy. So when we do a translation, you can consider it hypocrisy or ostentation, which is when you show off, or it's falsehood or superficiality. And this applies, of course, one to what we present to the world. So, I want to present that I'm richer than I truly am. So, one is the material wealth, right? But it also applies to things like goodness. I want to appear that I'm more good than what I really am. I'm more charitable than what I really am. Greatness, righteousness. So we also have ostentation and hypocrisy in these areas as well. And how does hypocrisy manifest itself? By pretending to be what we are not. So, for example, we are wishing ill for someone, but outwardly we are showing that we have extremely well and good intentions towards that person, but actually in our heart we don't have it. We are wishing evil to that for that person. We may be trying to show that we have renounced the world. So, I'm wearing white robes and I'm just sitting somewhere on maybe a simple bench, and I've renounced things. So that is what I'm trying to show. But inwardly, I have a lot of value. I mean, the worldly goods actually have a lot of value. So on the seat that on which I'm sitting, which I've covered maybe with a white sheet, I may be having a whole lot of gold bars and all sitting, because that is what attracts me. So now this is pretending to have renounced, but actually I have not been able to give it up. So I'm actually covetous. And again, being showing off that I'm right, I live very righteously, but I actually I'm aggrandizing, I'm committing fraud to earn my wealth, I'm living by unrighteous means, so that is all, this is dumb or ostentation or hypocrisy. So it is a false show of love, charity, material wealth, and also, in fact, knowledge, to cover what we don't know, to cover our ignorance. So it applies even to that. So all this is ostentation, one of the demonical qualities. Next one that the verse brings out is darp, or arrogance. So this is extreme pride. So actually, in a sense, it comes out of the hypocrisy that we do. So out of that pretending to be something that we are not, then we become proud or arrogant about the fact that I am learning, of my knowledge, of my wealth, social status, family connections, even my youth. I become very arrogant about all these things. And consequently, what happens? We live in a kind of world where we are the only important person. And this arrogance leads us to the next quality, which is abhiman, or self conceit. So I feel that
अरे
I am the
यहाँ पे
one.
वर्ल्ड जीजी का बहुत सारा काम है, जी
I
के
am
काम से कुछ सामान उठाना है.
okay. So I am the one. I am egoistic, and I start having an exaggerated opinion of myself. So the world exists for me. I am the one principle. So the person believes that he or she is the greatest, the only one existing. The entire creation is there to attend to that person's beck and call, and uh, also that person is responsible for everything that is happening. So he's the doer also. He or she is the doer. The third quality, the fourth quality that comes before us is krodh, anger, which we know. No, but let's analyze this. What is anger? Anger, if you recollect, from chapter 2, we have been actually reading it, and in chapter 2, it was covered in great detail, and especially the verses 62 and 63. So, anger is actually an interruption of desire. Okay. So, we are attached to an object, and then we start desiring. So, this was the ladder of fall that we covered in chapter 2, verses 62 and 63. So, attachment leads to desires. If the desire is fulfilled, more desires arise. And if it is not fulfilled, the desire that we entertained, if it is not fulfilled, then we become angry. Anger leads to the delusion, because we start going against our intellect, our discrimination. It stops functioning, and because of that, we perish. This broadly was the ladder of fall. And there we also read that someone who is ignorant is acts with obsessive attachment. So this attachment is the reason why the desires arise. So we bind ourselves to our field of activity. So whatever our profession is, we feel, oh my god, that is the be all and the end all. How we are bound to it, we attach ourselves to it, and to our wealth, to our family, to our homes, to our state, to our nation, so on and so forth. So and while we are attaching ourselves, we try to fulfill egocentric and selfish desires. So now, and this leads to arrogance, self conceit, arrogance, and hypocrisy. And when such kind of a person, these are the attributes that we just covered, this kind of a person looks around him, and the person feels that, where according to her opinion, everyone should be bowing down and fawning before the person, but in reality this is not happening. People are replying back, people are being insolent towards that person. So there is a mismatch, expectation mismatch. So the world's estimate of the person is completely different from, or well, somewhat different. The degree may vary, but is different from the person's estimate of oneself. And in such a situation, what happens? The person revolts against that particular trait, which the person feels that against that expectation mismatched trait. So such a person gets worked up with anger and frustration, and this gives rise to harshness and insolence in speech and action, which is the next quality. Parushyam Shayam is harshness, rough, uncouth behavior. This is the result of frustration when your uh, expectations or your desires are not met. And now, all these qualities that we have covered, ostentation, arrogance, self conceit, anger, and harshness, they are a consequence or manifestation of what? Ignorance or agyana, which is the last quality that he is bringing about in this verse. So, which is the ignorance of our essence, the Godhood within all of us, our core. And while we are reading the verse, Sur means, actually in Sanskrit, it means angel. So Asur means something which is not an angel or a demon. So such people are termed here by Krishna as born out of ignorance and are asuric or diabolical. So this was verse number 4. Let's move on to verse number 5. I will chant. देवी सम्पद्विमोक्षाय निबन्धाय सुरीमताः मा शुचा सम्पदं देवीम् अभिजातोऽसि पाण्डवाः. So the verse translates to, the divine nature is deemed for liberation, the demonic for bondage. Grieve not, you are born of the divine nature, O Pandava. So, interesting verse. I mean, the construct is very interesting. Let's take this up word by word. Devi is divine, Sampat is nature, Vimokshaye. So, that is for liberation. Nibandhaya for bondage. So, see, Nibandh means where you are restricted by a framework. इसीलिए when you may recollect your Hindi language courses. So we would write, essay writing was called Nibandh. That means you have to have a structure. You are bound by that structure, that you'll have an introduction, then you will have 3 paras of something of explanation, and you'll have a concluding paragraph. So that is what Nibandh actually means, that you are bound by a structure. I'm just telling it to you so that when you read other texts, you understand what Nibandh means is that you are bound by a framework. You have to work within the framework. So, it'll be easier for you to understand more literature, both spiritual and non spiritual. Asuri is, of course, demonic. Mat is thought. Ma, do not. Shuchah is grieve. Sampadam is nature. Devim is divine. Abhijat, the one that is born. Asi, you, for Arjun. Uh, Pandav is, of course, a name for Arjun, the lineage of the Pandavas. So the verse translates to, the divine nature is deemed for liberation, the demonic for bondage. Grieve not, you are born of the divine nature, O Pandava. So let's chant it together. Devi Sampadvimokshaya Nibandhaya Surimata Ma Shucha Sampadam Devim Abhijatosi Pandava. So, see, now in this verse, what Lord Krishna is doing, after presenting before us the divine qualities and the demonical qualities, now the Lord is telling us the fruits or the results of each of these uh, category of people or natures. Actually, let's talk of nature. Now, see, in front of Arjun, as a student, what is happening in front of Arjun? Two lists have come up. One which is listing out all the divine qualities, and the second which is listing out all the demonical or the demonical qualities, right? And as an intelligent person, Arjun needs to understand the effects and action of the actions and qualities of these qualities, so that he will be able to inculcate those qualities that are beneficial and yield good results, and avoid those that are non beneficial or harmful. Those are to be avoided. See, it's just like when we are not aware of what we are consuming. I'm talking very, very physically at the food level. So you go through pakoras and you go through, oily, greasy food. You also go through salads and things of that kind. You're not aware of what is good for you. But when the data is presented before you, and you are told that one serving of pakora is has so many calories, so much of unsaturated fat, salad has so much, then you become wise, and then you say, okay, fine, maybe I should, you know remove the pakoras and move towards the salad, or that kind of food. And maybe once in a while, because I will go on a binge. So this data is very important, because the doctor will tell you that this having so much of oily food will lead to the increase in your cholesterol levels and so on and so forth, which will block your heart, it will block your system. So you say, okay, fine, let me avoid it, right? So exactly the same thing is happening here. So once we know that these qualities, like arrogance, anger, harshness, they are not good for me, I will try to avoid them. Yeah. Once in a while, maybe I go on a binge on anger, but I will actually understand that it's not right. I should avoid it and inculcate the divine qualities within us. And therefore, the results are simple of the qualities. The Lord says that the divine nature liberates us, and the demonical nature binds us. So one leads to liberation, and the demonical nature leads to bondage. Liberation is what? Freedom from the cycle of birth and death, becoming one with that supreme reality, becoming that ultimate bliss, peace, love, merging with that. Bondage is what? That we continue in that framework. And what is the framework? That you have vasanas which lead you to your next birth, then you exhaust maybe some of them, you build more, and you die because the physical body gives way, but you still have the desires and the vasanas remaining to enjoy. Some things remain in your life, so maybe that new Kanchipuram sari was remaining. So you take birth and you come back to buy for that Kanchipuram sari. Now, isn't that crazy? So, anyway, so this is the bondage for us. It is like the gravitational pull of the earth, which keeps the planes and everything, satellites in the orbit. It is only when we cross with the escape velocity that we escape the gravitational pull of the earth. So the two natures, the divine and the demonical, they function in opposite directions, and they yield opposite results. So one is the liberation and the other is bondage, slavery. And the intelligent person, just like we talked about the food habits, knows what to choose between freedom and bondage or slavery. None of us want pain and suffering, ignorance, darkness, bondage, slavery. The second interesting thing that this verse brings before us is that Arjun is reassured by the Lord Himself that he is born of divine nature. He has a lot of divine qualities, and he just needs to. The implicit statement is that Arjun needs to focus on these qualities to increase the spiritual wealth. And if you've been noticing throughout the Bhagavad Gita, actually, Krishna holds Arjuna in very high esteem. Not only, I mean, he is referred to him as a sakha, and not only as a friend, but also as a great warrior. And, so when we did the previous chapters, he addresses him, Arjun amongst the Pandavas, etc. So, what it brings out is that Arjun is also qualified for spiritual evolvement. See, Arjun is the only one who is getting this, to whom the Lord uh, recited the Bhagavad Gita. So that's one, the next point. Okay, let's move on to verse number 6. द्वौभूत सर्गो लोकेऽस्मिन् दैवासुर एव च दैवो विस्तरशः प्रोक्ताः आसुरं पार्थ मे शृणु. So the verse translates to, there are two types of beings in the world, the divine and the demonic. The divine has been described in detail. Hear from me, O Partha, of the demonical. So let's take this up word by word. Dua is two. Bhoot Sargo. Bhoot is someone that is born. Sargo is created. So Bhoot Sargo becomes created beings. Loke in the world. Asmin, this. Dev is divine. Asur is demonic. Ev even cha, and Dev divine. Vistarashaha is in detail, or Vistar is the Hindi word that you get from Vistar. Prokta is what you have in spoken. Asuram is demonic. Parth is name for Arjun. May of me. Shrinu is here. So there are two types of beings in the world, the divine and the demonic. The divine has been described in detail. Hear from me, O Partha, of the demonical. So let's chant it together. द्वभूत सर्गो लोकेऽस्मिन् दैवासुर एव च देवो विस्तरशः प्रोक्तः आसुरं पार्थ मे शृणु. So this is simple. According to Krishna, the entire creation falls under two categories, divine or Devic and demonical or Asuric. Now, the Lord says that He has described the divine category or the divine nature in great detail, which was verses 1, 2, and 3 of this chapter. And actually, if you recollect, there are many verses that we have been reading in the previous chapter. So, you talked about the qualities of the Bhakta, the Jnani. They are all actually talking about the divine qualities. So, the divine has been listed out in great detail. And Krishna now says, now here about the demonical type of, about the demonical nature. So, how the people function. Now, so next 15 verses, actually, we will be talking about the demonical quality. Lord Krishna would be presenting before us the demonic nature in detail. Now, let's look at this. See, demonic means something which is not, someone who's, or something, someone who's not an angel. That actually is like 99.9% of us. None of us can call ourselves angels. We are not always divine and blissful and peaceful, loving in all situations and circumstances. So, the next 15 verses are actually describing us to us. Okay. So now, see, like we were just talking about the Phulo Ki Holi, and we'll be going there. So when I go there, I want to be presentable, and even for a party. Okay, let's say. So when we need to be presentable, first and foremost, we should understand how we are not presentable currently. What is it that is wrong about me, which makes me not fit for, let's say, a party. I would like to be better for the party. So maybe my hair is, blown out of proportion, or maybe I need to get it blow dried, maybe I need to wash it. So what about my clothes? I should be formally dressed for the occasion or not. So what all these things are what are making me define as to how unpresentable I currently am, so that I can work on myself and become presentable. This is an example. Now, in this, the mirror in front of me plays a significant role. So I go in front of the mirror. Okay, body maybe I can see, but my face and my hair and all, I need to go and stand in front of the mirror and see my reflection to understand where all I need to work on myself. So the next few verses, next 15 verses are like a mirror in front of us, which tell us our current status vis-a-vis these divine and demonical qualities. Actually, they're talking about the demonical qualities, which are our, let's say, the spots or the marks which we can remove from our personality, or these are the negative traits in us, so that we can work upon them and remove them from within our personality, so with that we start shining, resplendent, which is one of the divine natures. So with that, I end today's session.